I think in many ways, it really brings an end to, a number of years, almost 8 years, 9 years of relentless persecution. And, many St. Lucians would probably be of the opinion that I stole a vehicle, I did not pay taxes on the vehicle, I did not submit the right documents. The UWP has gone all out to destroy my reputation, to spoil my reputation. And it's all on the basis of a vehicle I know I bought with my money, and I did not break any rules or laws. But they had to create that narrative, and not just once, but they've tried to do it in many instances. And I'm saying here to you, it will not end. It will not end. It will end when Alan Chastanet loses the Miku seat and the Labour Party is returned to government. And even then, I think his obsession will continue. But I want, before we even talk about the judgment, let's just go over how this started and what happened. Soon after the election was lost by the Labour Party in 2016, of course, Alan continued this personal vendetta. The first accusation was that I had stolen a vehicle from the High Commission in England, and a memo was actually prepared for an investigation into a missing government asset. And I can recall the memo from the then Director of Finance saying they had no record of ever having purchased such a vehicle or ever having disposed of such a vehicle. But she still asked that there be an investigation, because that was what the instruction was, that I had stolen a vehicle. And of course, once I provided evidence that I had paid for the vehicle and showed my bank statements where the money came from my bank account to pay for the vehicle, the narrative changed. So it was that I had not paid my taxes in the UK. But of course, once it was pointed out that I was a diplomat, I enjoy diplomatic status, and I don't pay taxes, on purchases of that nature, I would not have to pay it, then the narrative changed again. I now became, I did not pay my taxes in St. Lucia. Again, I had to explain to them, I'm a returning diplomat, I don't pay taxes. And then they pointed out that you had not paid the VAT, and the exemption for returning diplomats at that time did not cover VAT. And then I pointed out to them, well, it's not my responsibility to pay the VAT. It's the state's responsibility to pay the VAT, because I'm a returning diplomat. And then we discovered documents where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually tried to pay the VAT when they realized that the VAT had in fact not been paid. But then the government then stopped it from being paid, so they can say, I had not paid it. But it was explained again, it's not my responsibility. I am a returning diplomat. And they attempted to get controllers of customs to seize the vehicle. The first controller said there was no basis for that. He was removed. A second controller was put in, a female controller. She too said there's no basis for that. She was removed. And a third person was put in. And that person was not even appointed as controller. I think that person was acting controller. I'm told the person may not have even been qualified to be controller, but was acting controller. And I read a report from the individual virtually saying, I can do it, I can get it done. Of course, that person is now a candidate for the United Workers' Party. And so just think about that. How do you have been engaged in all those activities and end up being a candidate together with Alan Chastanet, but still deny that you had any political intentions when you did what you did? But that person seemed to have, and so from my reading of the document, seemed to have suggested that they can get the job done, they can get it done, and was made acting controller. And what the person then claimed is that I did not submit the right documents. My lawyers wrote and said, look, can you cease and desist and stop harassing Ernest Hilaire, because he has provided you with all the documents you need. But he insisted he does not have the documents and proceeded to charge me and also to seize the vehicle. The vehicle was seized for 1 year because he claimed I did not give the right documents. What I did then was to bring a suit against Chico and bring a suit against the Attorney General, because this is clearly wrong. I know I have provided you with all the documents. I know that. And yet you're going to charge me So, of course, I brought a suit against him. And there was actually, the court sent it to mediation. And at that mediation, his lawyer was able to persuade for the matter to be settled, and he would have had to apologize. And I can make available copies of the order of the court and the wording of his apology. The wording of his apology to me in exchange for me dropping the case against him. Now, like I told him during that matter, I can go after you and make you pay. But I have no such intention. I have no such intention. In any case, I told him then that he was just a pawn of Alan Chastanet. They were just using him to get to me, and I'm not going to go after him to make him pay. Of course, if I knew then that he was going to end up being a candidate of the United Workers' Party, my disposition might have been a little different. But he did offer an apology. But just to show you the character of the individual, the apology was read by his lawyer, recorded, videotaped, whatnot. The court document, which I can share with you, does not recognize who read the apology. It says it's an apology from him. He then argues afterward that he never apologized. It's his lawyer that apologized for him. Now, I don't know how you can differentiate between your lawyer apologizing for you and it's not you that apologized, so it's somebody else that apologized for you. But he did apologize, and the court order is there. And in exchange for that, I dropped the charges against him. I mean, that tells you how I felt. Despite all what he did to me, despite charging me wrongfully, despite seizing my vehicle for 1 year, I decided, bro, I'm not coming after you. This is not even about you. You know, this is about Alan Chastanet coming after me. My matter in relation to his charging me also went to court, and the magistrate also said, go to mediation. The magistrate would just said, why is this matter even before the courts? Solve that in mediation, because as far as the magistrate is concerned, what's this all about? So we went to mediation. During mediation, of course, elections were called, and the Labour Party won. Of course, you know, he was an acting controller. His contract, his acting period ended, and of course, he was not renewed. And like I said, remember I said at the start, he did not even qualify, because if you think about it, if he was qualified to be controller, they would have appointed him controller. But he was never appointed controller because he wasn't even qualified for the post. And then a new controller was put in place. At our first mediation after elections, the new controller said to mediation, look, I can't continue with this case. I saw it before I became controller. I advised then that there was no basis for it. Now I'm controller, I cannot proceed in this case. And of course, he agreed to drop the matter. We went to court. Reported the mediation exercise to the magistrate, who, of course, dismissed the case. Alan Chastanet then decides he's going to bring a case in court saying that the controller did not have the capacity to drop the charges against me. And he wanted a judicial review of it. He lost in the High Court. He went to the appeal court. He lost in the appeal court. He then goes to the CCJ to try to win his case, thinking that he wants it reinstated. Now remember all what I told you, that from the day one, my lawyers wrote to them and said, but the document you're asking for is already in your possession. I mean, my lawyers wrote then. The new controller said, but the document, I have to drop the case because the document you're asking him for, we have it. But in Chico's mind and Alan Chastanet's mind, no. The document, they want it to be in a particular form, a particular way, and that's what they want. But that's their business. I think you saw the CCJ judgment and what the judges fought of Alan Chastanet and his case. And in many ways, it really tells you of the character of the person. I mean, when a High Court, an appeals court, and a CCJ can, in every instance, point to the illogicality of what you're doing, the nonsensical nature of what you're doing, wasting the court's time. But for him, what's important is that it continues to attack HILAIRE. Just keep throwing dirt, keep saying things, because something must stick, or some people will believe what is being said. From day one, I mean, the same Alan Chastanet, in an interview on HTS, would accept that, yes, the vehicle belongs to HILAIRE, he paid for it, but he gave it back to the High Commission as a gift. I don't know if you all have seen that clip. That clip is available, where he actually says, yes, it's his vehicle, he bought it, yeah, we accept that, but he gave it back as a gift, and he took back the gift he gave. I mean, this is how ridiculous this got. But all along, my name has been sullied, you know, been dirtied, and, you know, to destroy, you know, my reputation. But the CCJ really put it in perspective. It was a monumental waste of the court's time. So we're now waiting for the next judgment that will come, where he applied for an injunction to stop the CIP. And that one, the case was heard, July 26, I think it was heard, or around that time, just after Carnival. So we're going to wait for that judgment to hear what the courts will say about this one. But you see, again, all of that just tells you, and when you put into context what happened with Martinez and the RICO case, I mean, remember what we went through during this RICO case thing with Martinez? St. Lucia being placed on the international, you know, landscape, and the leader of the opposition trying his very best to dirty and sully the name of St. Lucia. To join with Martinez, you know, join with him, known for all his past and all the things he's done in the past, and join with him to destroy St. Lucia. I mean, he promised Martinez had given him evidence, and he was going to New York and Washington to collect the evidence, and he was going to bring it back. And at the end of the day, Martinez himself realized he didn't have a basis for what he was saying. And then they will claim, oh, we got diplomatic immunity, we claim. Which diplomatic immunity? McLeod doesn't have diplomatic immunity. The only person in Central who was named was McLeod Emmanuel, who does not have any diplomatic immunity. So he have no diplomatic immunity he can claim. But Martinez dropped the case because basically there is no case. Martinez thought he could have filed this case and caused everybody to meet his demands, whatever they were. It didn't happen, so eventually he had to drop the case. But Alan Chastanet, Guy Joseph, and UWP joined with him. And we said then, and we still believe, they were prepared to burn down St. Lucia and for him to be the king of the ashes. That if he burn it down, he's now the king, and he'll try to rebuild it. That was his sole intent, to stop the CIP, stop the infrastructure program, because he did not want progress to take place in this country. That all what the government was doing, all the good works of the government had to be stopped at all costs. How could Philippe boast about growth and development and roads and schools and hospital? How can he boast of those things? And to have more money from the CIP to do more for St. Lucia, he had to stop it in his mind. And he didn't mind destroying St. Lucia to stop it. In this case, with my matter, it was about destroying me. And then by extension, the government and the Labour Party. It was about destroying me. But it will take a lot more than this. He will continue to try. And I can tell all of you here today, I am sure, I am very sure, that you're already conniving and planning what next to do. Because that's the nature of the beast. You have to continue to go at it, to go at it, go at it, until eventually he's stopped.